this is out. Aristotle, Plato, Christ, Buddha says, know thyself. Well, what is it that we need to know? Well, number one, look at our flaws, our upbringing, our roots, and that determines how dusty our lens are, the inability to see clearly. And so, the more dusty someone's vision and glasses are, the more they need to understand the Dhamma, the more they need to research, in order to know what to do with the very impossibly complicated mind that they have. On the other hand, I grew up as one of the most analytical and complicated kid the world has probably ever seen. But yet, when it came to the teachings of the Buddha, I was ripened, I was ready, and I didn't really have to go into details of like dependent origination to understand what it is it's talking about. And when I meditated, it was serene, it was easy, or I mean, at least to me, it was easy. And when I saw the true nature of reality of things, I was just like, I get it now. And then now, like the Ohio case, I'm able to fix an entire family in 3 days. It's not to brag, but what helped me to fix an entire family in 3 days? Well, what other complications and difficulty is the ability to stay with them, mindfulness. I mean, you can practice mindfulness for 20 years, and some people are only able to sustain mindfulness for like 5 minutes. And then after that, their mind jumps again as a direct result of practicing for 15 years, for example. And I have to stay with it and not miss a beat with 5 humans in front of me and cycle through things and remember teachings and give recommendations and all this other stuff. Because I was ready to let go. I've let, and I did. I've let go. You know, Venerable Lee witnessed something yesterday where my best friend called and basically admitted his wrongdoing. We split as good friends over business transaction that went very south, and it hit a bunch of personal notes regarding the word respect and boundaries. And I did not see my best friend, which is a rare thing when I call someone my best friend, that I grew up with 15 years. And, I Venerable Lee must have sat there and thought to himself, oh my God, this is some very serious stuff. The look on my face, my tone, nature, everything, and then how quickly I dismissed it, and how I dealt with it, and what transpired from beginning, middle, and to end, and how quickly I just let it go, and I properly adjudicated and let go. A lot of people hold grudges, and then Venerable Lee, who sits in front of me, probably wonders, well, what happened if Venerable Chidao actually held this grudge? Then it would have touched the reinforcement and fortification of his self, that you did this to me, you disrespected me, you crossed the line. Now, if I sat there and actually cycled through this, then it's not pretty for the rest of the world in my position of doing what I do, because now I'm so stuck, it's so heavily stuck, recycling of the past, so heavily conceited, you know, the exaggerated attachment to self-importance. A little too long, a little too deep there, Venerable Chidao. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. But it's proven testament that, okay, you did me wrong. Well, you have now been adjudicated as the fool. And I can't deal with you right now because you're in the samsaric formation of a fool. And the wise will not entertain. The wise will also not let this be moved. His life and his trajectory of his future. The office of the wise will continue forward. So had I attached onto that, then my lens would be dusty. Because you can't prioritize other people's problems and help them fix to it if I have this problem of anger and narcissism and self-centered and all about me, and they did this to me in the victim game and all this other game that we know in, in psychology. So when it comes to the certain teacher, and you know what, and sometimes I sit here and I listen to other students ask ridiculously complicated questions, where of which I'm like, this is a little too analytical. Okay, this is a little too far out there, and I just can't fathom the hairball that is in their head trying to ask these complicated questions. Now, as last night I was going through my books. One of the book was Malinha Pangha or something like that in there. Where was it? King Malinha, Malinda. I not Melinda. It's Malinha. Uh, started questioning these things that you are questioning,
Mm.
key pertinent teachings, and I'm just like, dude. All right, well, he asked it. This is what was said. But the modern day students now in 21st century, I mean, they just ask ridiculous questions. And I, some questions I sit here and I'm just like, I don't think they'll ever be able to achieve enlightenment. It's because the puzzle of their mind and the hairball of their mind will take millenniums to unravel. Untangling the tangle. And my approach to teaching students is start untangling it now. And I'm teaching you all. Number one, cognitive behavioral therapy. If you blow things out of proportion, if you jump to conclusion without evidence, that in itself is a very complicated tangle. Have you, in fact, untangle this part of your mind? Then we
Mm.
can move forward, right? So that's my job is to let's find the hairball. How big is the hairball? How thin is the hair as they are intertwined and they're knotted together? Ever try to undo a knot and you're like, looks easy, but when I touch it, ain't working out. Somebody got a needle I can like get in here and try to like knit this thing out.
And then you pull it thinking you got it, and you're just making a bigger knot.
Yes. And then the other thing is that people crave, they want to satisfy their hunger for knowledge, and it's like, dude, calm down. I will teach you what you need to know right now, appropriate for you, which is exactly what the Buddha did. He walked into the forest with a bunch of monks, and the monks asked all these questions, and the Buddha was like, look, how many leaves are in this forest? What's in my hand or in the entire forest? And they were like, well, master, obviously the entire forest. And the Buddha's like, great, good deal. You see what's in my hand here, the many handful of leaves? That is what I teach, and that is what you need to know. And that's what you need to know right now. You understand? Let's proceed on forward. And they're like, oh, okay. So the teachings of Venerable Chi is also the same, which is I meet the student exactly where they're at. This is what I think that is appropriate for them, for their level of understanding. And this is where we're going to start. And I try to like scoot them back in. Notice all your questions. I scoot you back in, and it always come back to let's focus on you, not about the war, not about right living, because obviously unless you are engaging in wrong living in the Noble Eightfold Path, then there'll be a different conversation. But
Yeah.
you are not, and other people are, and I'm not concerned about other people. That's their karma, and if they haven't sat there and have a existential question or whatever the case may be, it's just like if they can't even see what they're doing wrong by holding such weapon of mass destruction or weapon of this or that, blah blah blah. That I don't have time to babysit those people. So I always circle back around and was like, let's figure out you, um, and your basic understanding of Buddhism first.
Mm.
Eventually, you will get to your answers, and eventually you will become a very good teacher. Actually, a teacher of yourself first and foremost, and then a teacher of others, because you're being guided towards the right path of understanding. And you've asked about dependent origination a couple of times, and right now it's not need to know basis. I mean, just the poly alone in here is just like, huh? It's too analytical. It's not simple.
I think it's also like stemming from, which is why I'm glad that we have these talks. You kind of push me back in the right direction, because I think it's really coming off of what you mentioned about the thirst for just knowledge in general. Like, I heard it before, so therefore I feel like I need to know everything about it, which, maybe that'll come in time, but it's not necessary for what I need to know right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to decipher this alone is like, oh boy, because I have to, because reading it and then explaining back to you, but then the teacher also is charged with the responsibility of, will she in fact know what I'm talking about, nama rupa and form senses and sense base, and like she ain't gonna get it right now. Just like we get through the basics and then slowly we inch closer, and so it's no different than bachelor's and then master's and then doctorate. You can't just jump from, oh, welcome to college, let's put you in a master's program.
You're ready to go.
Right. And likewise, you're practicing martial arts. Your teacher's not going to go to the next kata until you have perfected your chop, your blocks, your punch, the power in the punch, the breathing, the control of just the precision of your movements, and you there's a lot of unskillful teachers. You just watch the student perform, and you're just like, wow, your teacher just want to cycle through this so that you get the belt that you want. You didn't earn this belt the way that it should have been earned.
We have discussions about that a lot, because there's students at various levels, even ones that have been there longer than I have, but our teachers go based on consistency of coming to classes. Are you taking in the lessons?
And then there's parents out there that tells the instructor, look, I'll slide you another $100. Just make sure Johnny gets the brown belt, okay? And because of politics, they do it. And I've watched brown belts do things in black belt. I'm like, that kid is a black belt? Because you know how far I had to get just a green belt. And I'm like, that kid, that little Johnny is a black belt. Look at his kicks. That is the most
2 years.
the sloppiest kick I have ever seen in my entire life. If he was to kick, we won't go there. So, and I'm just like, the sheer, utter ocean of disappointment when I walk into certain martial arts schools. Yeah. And then it's that school of Jidao is different, and now it's the same thing with teaching the Dhamma. And one thing I like about you, Miss Breeze, you check in once a week, religiously every week. What a consistent woman. That's why I will tolerate it. Even if you ask dumb questions, I will tolerate it. And as the day passes, moving forward, my patience running out. And even I'm teaching to monastics, and they don't do the homework, and I'm just like, I've gotten to the point now at the time of this talk where I just ignore them. I don't even want to give a reason why I don't want to teach to them anymore. I just disappear.
You're like, I'm done.
They're like,
just for now, and just say, no, I'm not answering that.
They're like, when can we meet again? We're not. And guess who's playing the silent game? I am. Because the Buddha says, if you ain't got nothing to say, if you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. And I ain't got nothing to say. So right now, like, I just don't have any more patience of foolishness. And I'm looking for the Buddhist elite student. The Buddhist elite. And if you try your hardest and best, you will become an elite as it is ever going to get. And some of these people, I'm just not sure. I don't know what conversation they had with themselves, a lack of supreme reflection. And I don't have time to babysit them. That's your master's job. Your master must have failed you. That's why I'm here. And if you're not following what I'm trying to tell you, why are we here? Why? Bye, Felicia.
Well, it was funny because, people have noticed, a difference in my mannerisms since starting this as well as martial arts, and so they often ask like, what are you doing differently? And so I talk about our conversations and our lessons. And I have friends all the time. They're like, "Oh, I should start doing that. I'll message him." And I literally every time have to just be like, "You're gonna have to work. Like, you can't just. This is different than just like going and listening to somebody talk to you for an hour and once a week, and then it's over and done with. Like, you have to work for it. And if you're not willing to put the work into it, then I wouldn't even recommend talking because it's not gonna go well." And I think I've so far talked almost everybody out of doing it. So I'm like, you can't just sit there and just think that someone else is going to do the work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. For some odd reason, last night I was listening to a priest who was an exorcist, you know, the casting out of demons and people, and I was just like, why am I watching this? But this guy had such a unique leadership in his voice where I'm like, you know, if I'm listening to you for more than an hour as I'm sorting out my books and my room, you're really good, and I just want to see how good he actually is. And he was talking about inner strength and how you have to fortify the inner strength at any and all costs with self-discipline. But he has such conviction in his voice where when you hear this man can lead you to the gate of heaven of God. I'm telling you. He's a very good priest, very good priest. And he's partnered up with a cardinal, Cardinal Burke, which is a very serious thing when you see a priest under the guidance of a cardinal, which is a prince of the church, and they're talking about exorcism. Because sometimes when you talk about this stuff, it's a little bit far fetched from people's understanding, and people are like, "Okay, casting out demons, all right, dude." But there's a cardinal behind him, so he knows what he's talking about. And I was just trying to bear through with it, and I'm like, yes, well, in Buddhism we have demons too. We call them psychological demons, also known as Maras, Mara. And I'm like, go ahead, hit it, win me over with your pitch. I used to be Catholic, and I'm like, go ahead, have at it. And he did. He spoke about inner. You need to do this. You need to do that. Do cut off this, cut off that, because the devil will demonic, whatever, demonic oppression and diabolic oppression and whatever. Bunch of terminologies will infiltrate. So he's very, very analytical, very psychological in his explanation to help. Has a unique way of explaining to people where they understand how the devil can seep in and how you have to fortify. In concurring with the teachings of the Buddha about the foundations of your home, he hit it right on the spot. The parallels with what we have in Buddhism about fortify. I thought Venerable Lee died.
Somebody breaking in?
No, he coughed and I thought he died.
Oh.
Venerable Lee, are you alive? He said partially. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911.
Exactly.
So where am I going with this? So about human effort into this path is that what I'm doing here, and let me make this analogy, Miss Bree, is that I'm cultivating you. You practice martial arts for the sake of self-defense of physicality, and also some mental discipline in there. But what I am doing here with you is to cultivate you to be like Iron Woman. If there's an Iron Man, well, you're gonna be an Iron Woman. That means no matter what happens in life, whoever talks bad about you, put you down, try to kill you, try to defame you, praise, blame, gain, loss, all the arrows, the 8 winds of life comes at you. You're able to withstand it fearlessly and unmoved by anything that is good or bad. Your roots are so well established. Your roots are so well established on the ground that, yeah, she's good. She's gonna be good for a good minute, from birth to death. and we're doing small baby steps, gradual, and you see the amount of phone calls that we've made so far weekly, and look at the progress. It is good progress, but you see how slow, gradual, meticulous, and careful it is,
Yeah.
and your retention of information, and the competing priority of information that is being absorbed by you as a young woman that you are, with the people that you're with at the place where you're at, and the resources available to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting. Like, I can definitely see how a lot of people, when they decided back then to take on this, the teachings, they went into monastic life so they could be completely absorbed into it. Because otherwise, you're dealing with not only trying to absorb all the teachings of the Dhamma, but you're getting the world at the same time and trying to like organize and pick out what's important and what's not, and it's crazy.
Right. Let me speak to my staff, Stephen, for a second. He just called in court. Hello. Hello.
Yo.
You're available tomorrow?
Yeah. What time do you need me at?
Just hold off. Just be on standby because they're inviting me 1 o'clock, father and son, over there at Clearwater Beach. But right now I'm experiencing liver failure, lung failure, kidney failure due to 4 hours of sleep. And I just got done with the Ohio case just like an hour ago, and I'm talking to Madam Bree from Virginia.
Oh, what about the Tampa case for tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely not. No, she's no. Just exactly what I
Okay.
predicted. And I'm not at liberty to discuss that case right now because I'm live. And this call may be recorded and monitored for quality assurance.
Okay.
But just hang off on that. I, you already know how I feel about the Tampa case. And it is exactly what I
All right.
predicted. Did not follow instruction as instructed. Right, Miss Bree? We spoke about that just now. That's it. Did you see? There go another one. And I'll get with you 11. Why don't you call me at like 11 tomorrow?
All right. Got you.
And stay on top of your homework so that just in case it opens up. Because from now until Thursday till they leave, it's going to be very busy.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just in recovery mode right now, operating on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah. I got
Thank you, Stephen. Have a good
All
night.
right. Bet. All right. Good night.
Lung failure, brain failure, heart failure, eyeball failure. So, so, but, but yeah, like like the letter to your parents also, and I was just like, she's procrastinating, and I'm like, I'll give it time because, of course, the teacher's internal process in his mind is gonna always be like, she's not doing what you want her to, blah 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 blah. That little lawyer in my head, and I'm like, chill out. She's calling every week. She's telling me what's going on. She's being honest. She's hesitant. She's not sure. Be patient with the girl, will you? And I'm like, all right, well, okay. Well, as long as it takes. And then the other side, the public defender side, is like, she's also an organism just like all of us. It takes time for people to change and be convinced. It takes time for people to feel like they're safe before they do it. So, huh? And so the prosecutor is like, huh? And I was like, huh?
And I mean, like, it was, like, after the letter was sent, it was definitely a weird, like, calmness that settled over me. Because it was like, it's done. Like, whatever happens at this point. Like, I was trying my hardest not to build it up in my head. And, of course, I'm not that disciplined yet. So, of course, my mind was rolling every once in a while. And it could have gone way worse than it did. But definitely would have wished it had gone a little better.
Venerable, are you gonna take a shower? No. Okay. You can hit the light if you need to. I don't need the light in there.
I'm trying to organize some of these books.
I just books.
Books and quotations.
Oh my God, where? What's happening with my life?
No, not books, not actual books.
What's happening in there?
I'm trying to put some of this away.
Of mine? I'll just leave it there. Whatever's on the floor, just leave it there. Just clear the bed so that you can actually sleep?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, it's on the bed.
Yeah.
I need to hire a maid or something. I need a robot. Someone buy me a robot and send it here.
Those
Don't.
are cheap and affordable.
They'll probably kill me in my sleep. So don't buy me a robot. I don't trust them things.
I saw a robot around here.
What was I talking about?
Oh,
Ah.
crap.
Oh, okay. So we not gonna talk about this other doctor's name, but he took a 15-year break from his parents, and he was also in the LGBTQIA community. And when I heard that, and I'm like, this was 60 years ago, 40 years ago, and I'm like, what? You took a 15-year break from your 15? So, and I just have like no patience when it comes to these types of parents out there that behaves the way that they are to you. So perhaps what I'm doing is probably conditioning you, preparing you to take a 10-year break from your parents if need be. Again, the organisms that they are and how stubborn and hard-headed that they are, the inability to recondition themselves, and they are stiff on their standpoint and policy that this is the family, this is what we stand and believe in, and anyone else that loves a different or same gender and like, dude, I don't have time for that right now. I'm gonna do me and you do you, and when the time is right, we shall reconvene. And if it means 10 to 15 years or even more, I'm okay with that.
I am definitely so I'm going home for the Thanksgiving break. This will be the first time I've seen them since basically coming out to them. So it's kind of a trial because I'm very interested. I made it very clear that obviously I respect their belief system, but I don't want conversion situations trying to happen. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to go, and if that starts to feel like that's what's happening, then that'll definitely change how often I interact with them for sure. But I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt because they already did respond way better than I thought they were going to. I also kind of just have accepted, not in like a superior sense, but like in a sense of this is where they're at, and this might be as far as they go as far as this human life and their knowledge. But I'm also wondering if I, come at this perspective, this difference in beliefs from a humble stance, maybe they will eventually become curious and start asking about, what is Buddhism, what is the Dhamma, and maybe I'll slowly integrate that in. Who knows?
I see. I had to condition my mom for the past like 10 years. And so I'm just like, I just know how humans operate.
Yeah.
And the type of humans that are out there. So I just go ahead, just play with it. You're just like life is an experiment, and these people in our lives are like little rats, and you just have to see how the rat's gonna run around the maze, and the operant and classical conditioning we're going to deploy according to Ivan Pavlov's theories. I think it's Ivan Pavlov. Watch me be wrong. So
I mean, I wouldn't know the way, so.
So I commend you for having patience in trying to dance this dance with them. You're giving them a lot of chance, and you're flexible, not stiff like I was. I just didn't have any time for foolishness. I just would not have it. And I'm like, well, guess what, Mom? We're gonna take a year break. And a year passed by. And then she would act a fool again in 4 months' time, and I'm like, we're gonna take another year break. Like, I couldn't tell you these breaks that we took in between that is a year long. That's one hell of a sentence.
It's just wild that, like, you have to take a break from somebody that you didn't even choose to bring you into this world.
Right.
You know, and they were supposed to, you know, fulfill all these boxes. And like, I don't know if your parents were the same way, but like my parents, my dad at least is a boomer, and I feel like it's the mentality of his generation that as long as you had a roof over your head and food and water, then they were doing the stand-up job of parenting. And I mean,
Yeah, because my standpoint has always been, I don't owe you jack, lady. I don't. I didn't ask to have you as my mother. You just so happens to be just the lottery of the karma, the karmic lottery. Just so happens to be the wrong number on the wrong day, and now we're here. Now I'm stuck with you, and you're contributing to my suffering, and that is not going to happen. And so we're going to take this break. You can leave now, and don't come back for another year. Don't call, don't text. If you're going to die, don't call, don't text. If you have been dead, then I will get a phone call from the morgue or somebody else. Oh, I had a very strict policy. I had a very strict policy. It was zero tolerance policy to ensure my own peace. That's why I still look young.
I mean, I'm very curious to see, you know, I'm going in with an open perspective, but we'll see how the first experience goes. If it goes south really fast, then I might very quickly change my boundaries with that.
Am I wrong, Venerable Lee?
I took like a 2-year break from my parents. They didn't know where I lived, and I also changed my phone number.
He's such a saint. 2 years.
And he changed his phone number.
You needing my attention? You're just observing. Would you like to sit?
Sometimes I do wonder, like I've reflected on, like, do you almost think that there's a correlation with suffering and kind of being dealt bad cards in life and the ability to absorb the Dharma?
You want to answer that, Venerable Lee?
And that would lead back to karma, whatever you did in your past life, with your suffering in this life, I would say.
I'm so proud of him. He's been studying and reflecting. Life's not fair to us, and whatever we did in our last life, we're getting the long end of the stick in this life. And yes, yeah, karma is a biatch. It's such a long. It's the biatch word stretch a mile away. You know what I mean? Like, I swear in my last life I must have done a lot of wrong and a lot of bad, and I've like probably like betrayed people. So now I'm being like betrayed by my friends. And like Venerable Lee witnessed, like what he witnessed yesterday or 2 days ago was like the ultimate profound act of betrayal, where I told my one friend, and I'm like, I can't believe that you disrespected me, because out of all people, and adjacent to him was Eric, and Eric and I grew up together, and Eric told me I could never disrespect you, and here's my best friend that I trusted with my life, who have done things to protect me, and yeah, I must have done something to him in my last life. So I just took it as I comfort myself with that philosophy, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I probably cheated, stole, and lied to all of y'all. So now it's the debt that I have to pay in the Vietnamese arena and other karmic teachings arena that have also said it is a debt that you have to pay, and you will pay this debt in this lifetime. So you have to redirect your mind that this is a debt that we have to pay, and accept it. Don't resist it, because if you resist it, you know, one of the compelling cases is love. I love her, she loves me, but she cheated on me, but I'm still here with her, and the bond and the karmic attachment that is there. I've also seen a lot of cases where people have been disabled and cheat, lie, kill, steal, and yet they're still together for so long. And in Vietnamese culture, they say có duyên có nợ. Nợ is owed. Nợ is debt. and they're still together because they realize this is something that we have to ride out together. We're not gonna go and cheat. We're not gonna go and find another partner. You know,
Mm.
just accept it and pay it. You look at my life and you realize that I've given. And the other direct evidence Venerable Lee witnessed was how much I gave my entire life for these people to come back. So, you know, my best friend did me wrong, came back and said, you remember what he said? You want to repeat it?
I don't remember exactly what he said. You're talking about a couple nights ago.
Yes.
I mean, I remember some stuff, but I'm not exactly sure what you want me to
I
say.
diagnosed you with dementia. He says, through it all, you were a good guy. Second statement, the praise and blame they said about you, I know who you are. That's who you are. It is not what they said. So I've given my entire life, and I've challenged the entire world. Go ahead, find someone out there that said, I took more and gave less. I'll disappear in Antarctica. I will disappear in Antarctica. I will disappear in thin air. You will never find me, see me, hear of me. I will freeze to death up there and achieve Mahaparinibbana. So, but hey, I've done the best that I could for a lot of people, and I would now assert at pushing 40 years old that yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I love it. I never sat here and nickel and dime. I wouldn't look this young if I sat here and nickel and dime and be like, I did that for her. She done did nothing to me. I bought her a meal. She never reciprocated. I bought her boba tea, and she never brought me back boba tea a year later. I don't sit here and nickel and dime these things, and I'm just like, well. And guess what? There's going to be more suffering to come in my life, and there'll be more debts to pay, and I'm willing to embrace that. That is the right attitude.
Yeah,
In my
I definitely
hands,
need to start working on changing that.
Yes, in the readings of my hand, they've already said that you're not going to be able to keep money. It's always going to find its way out. But karma will always give you opportunities to have to earn money or make money or whatever. And that Venerable Lee has also directly seen. He came into my life when I had very little money, and then I went back to work as an interpreter, and money came in, very good substantial amount. But he also see it just like whoop, just slip right out, all of it. You know, and and I've told him, and I have convinced myself that yeah, I don't have any money left, but it will keep coming, and I don't ever have to worry about being hungry. As it comes, as it will go. I know that I can never hold on to it, but it will keep coming, and as long as it keep coming, I'm gonna keep on giving. I have accepted that fact. I have accepted that fact until to this day. So that's why I keep Venerable Lee around. You know, I'm pretty much like raising him, buying him time so he can alleviate his financial suffering. And I'm okay with that. And at the end of the day, I have like $50 in the bank. I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. And if I have to starve,
$50 to get you a lot of McDonald's.
yeah, and if I have to starve to death, but die as a result of such sacrifice, I'm okay with that too. I'll be happy with that. You give more and take less. Do exactly what the Buddha taught you. Do exactly what the Buddha taught you. Do not be defiant to his teaching. It will only lead to more suffering. I posted being schooled by Ajahn, which is this older monk that was there at the monastery, and I identified myself who I was, and I said, pay my respect, whipped out my phone and says, this is who I am. Everybody knows in Thailand I'm very popular. Thailand wrote a very nice article on their own CNN, which is like Sanuk.com. It's a very big thing. And okay, so I mean, they're like, oh, Vietnamese monk live in America, use English to inspire millions of people. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, and he proceeded to teach me the Four Noble Truths, and I'm just like, all right, sure, have at it. Yes, Luang Po, go ahead. I will absorb the Dhamma once again. But the one thing I noticed in there when he started, you know, putting the exclamation mark was, I always believe in the Buddha. Whatever the Buddha says is right, and the Dhamma will guide you. You know, like very, very convinced. These are his convictions. These are his values. And I'm just like, and what did I learn out of it? It wasn't about the Four Noble Truth. We already learned that. But I was just like, what a powerful conviction this man's heart has displayed. And same thing with the other priest last night. I mean, he was very convinced that, look, the devil is not going to reach this guy. The amount of faith and conviction that he's got, that the Lord gave me these prayers would in fact protect me under the guidance of my bishop and under the blessing of a bishop, that the devil will not enter this door. And I was just like, dang, I've never heard a priest say that. I was like, dang. So where are we getting with this? Now I have dementia.
It's okay, I have that at least twice a day. I mean, like, it's interesting that you bring that up, though, because I listened to a monk not too long ago talk about how, like, when you fully absorb or attempt to absorb the teachings of the Dhamma, it goes beyond belief.
Oh.
It goes to conviction.
Oh, yeah, I know where I was going with it. This is why when I operate on 4 hours of sleep, I'm like a zombie. And I teach the right way, and I teach what needs to be taught. And our job is to not do bad, always do good, and purify our minds. But we should also add the fourth thing in there that they didn't emphasize heavily enough, is to also purify our karma. We have these Mahayana monks in the country, like most venerable Mahayana monks, like they're like His Holiness in Vietnam. And so he took the microphone and he says, what's up, y'all? For all of you that ever had an abortion. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh no. Oh, here we go. For all of you that have ever had an abortion, you will now need to purify your karma for what you did. You willfully, you knowingly, you intentionally took a life. I was like, oh boy. Oh boy. Oh God. Oh boy. Well, thousands came. I've never seen so many people came. Thousands of women came. And hundreds, perhaps additional thousand of men also came who contributed to the suffering of a living being. And they did. They came and tried to repent and pay their debts and listen and absorb the Dhamma and meditated. And I was just like, it was one of the biggest an attempt to cleanse karmic debt from a systemic level I've ever seen in my life. It was a very bold action from the Buddhist community. And people mess around and find out, right? You slept around, you did this, and then you got pregnant, you had knowledge life was there. And the element of murder is you knew life was there. You started to plan how you're going to take this life. And thus subsequently, you effectively found a method to take this life. So they went down gritty, nitty details. But yeah, bless them, because I mean, good things happened that day, just for everybody. They just kind of like feel less guilty. They were a calmer, less depressed, less anxious, and they now have a roadmap on how to alleviate this karmic debt that they did to themselves. But that is to answer your question. Yeah, that's a really good question. Dealt with some bad cards.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's where that conversation started.
See, I circle back around.
Full circle.
So I hope that as like you're under my care, Venerable Lee, and the 26,000 people that's watching on my YouTube and many more around the world, that to take that karmic thing very seriously. And if
Mm.
I were to believe something and one thing, it would be the law of cause and effect, which of course I have put also known as Lord Karma. The term Lord Karma doesn't exist in the books. It exists in my head. And so I just imagine this guy that's keeping track and records, and when the time is right, he's gonna strike. It, the ripening, the causes and conditions for the karmic debt to ripen, and that's something everyone needs to take very seriously. I've took that seriously
Mm.
since I was a very little child, and I realized that, dude, you better do good, because one day it's gonna be your turn, and once it's your turn, you better hope that you don't suffer long and hard and deep, because it's not gonna be pretty. That in regards to old age, death, disease, decay. And people who do not heed this advice subsequently experiences disease, decay, old age, death, and it is very painful, as we have previously seen. Very painful. My uncle being one of them, who just died of stomach ulcer. I'm sorry, stomach cancer. And he told me he was a gangster. He told me he threatened people with guns. He told me he punched people. He like harmed people. I mean, this man was angry, running around town, terrorizing people. This man did. He and what I did not hear was how he made it right, how he turned his life around, how nothing of that. So here comes the observation of his death. Painful, hopeless. The way how you live your life determines the way how you will die.
That's like a really. I kind of have thought about that a couple of times because when my grandpa passed away, he passed away from pancreatic cancer. And that is definitely like something I would never wish on anybody because of how much pain you are in and how you can't really do anything to alleviate that. And my family's perspective from their Catholic upbringing was that the pain was purifying him before heaven. But it sounds like in the Buddhist perspective, it's you die the way you live in a way. Because my grandpa was not a very nice man. Like he was, I mean, this man literally at one point said, I would shake Hitler's hand kind of deal. Like not a good person. And he was proud of that.
So yeah, I mean, you just study long enough about karma and rebirth. Once again, University of Virginia, and I've traced one book that was like, God, Lord, knows, like 30 years ago, that traces back to University of Virginia's 50-year research, and it says it all there, empirical evidence of it, you know. So, well, I hope that satisfies that question of yours. We shall reconvene next week because I am on the verge of imminent
Yes.
death. You know, this through a very unique day. I didn't realize my day was going to be like this. Yeah, every time you have young students, they run circles around you, and it's always last minute. And we try to make it happen last minute. So I'll send you some pictures of our journey today. But I'm free, the majority free this week. And I know that on Tuesday and Wednesday that they're not going to bother me. So hopefully I can send it out to you this Tuesday and Wednesday. So please copy and resend that message.
Okay. I'll put it right back word for word for you.
You're pretty much there. You're like on the biggest shelf in my head right now. But who knows? Some things could happen with cases Tuesday and Wednesday. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's a joy talking to you tonight, and you brighten my night like every other night. No matter how tired I am or exhausted or on the brink of death, when Bree calls, I'm like, and then Venerably is really exhausted and tired. And he crawls out here without his robes, and he's trying to dodge the cameras because he's not properly dressed. I'm not even in robes, so to hear the teachings of the Buddha, we know you're gonna ask good questions like you always do. He knows you're gonna ask good questions. That's why he's out here listening.
Well, I'm glad I can keep it entertaining, if nothing else.
And there were more messages of really good questions on my phone that I've yet displayed to the people. Another 14-year-old student in Florida asked what question. I'm like, this kid has entered the third sainthood process. He's like one below an arahant. No 14-year-old asked these types of questions that this kid is asking me. So I am not sure what's going on in that brain of his, but it's very unique, very different. And one day I hope you get to meet him. What's his name?
Yeah.
Xavier, yeah. And then you realize that this child does not have any dust in his eyes. This child perhaps has very little dust in his eyes. This child in his past life was probably a most venerable who has absorbed a lot of teachings in his past life. And now he remembers them. And now he is giving Venerable Chidao a very hard time.
Well, you said he was the one that you made a saint, right?
By virtue of wisdom, which is perhaps the highest that you can go. I mean, these questions can open up an entire thesis and dissertation.
I can't wait to hear
One of them was, now, in order to get to nirvana, does Vajrayana and Mahayana practices will lead you to the same place? Who thinks of that?
Oh, that's interesting. There was actually a talk I heard recently about a monk that brought something like that up, and he basically explained it as there's a bunch of different rivers that lead to the same ocean, which I found interesting. You're like, no.
You gotta look at the details of how it's leading you there. Okay, so it's like, dear Bree, you live in Virginia, we live in Florida. This is the route to your place. And then there are people that are like, yeah, well, there's I-75, I-275, I-4, I-5, I-7 that will get north. You know, you pass all these and then you see, you know, the nice view. So there's like the nice view too on the way to Virginia, you can see. And then you got people that go, how about we avoid all the traffic cops and we go into these little roads where which you can run over nails, get shot at, bad neighborhood. You know, so you have to ask, well, which way, Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana, which one shows you the road that is less bumpy?
Most direct route?
Which sends you the road that makes you go in circles and a bunch of detours and waste gas, time, money, and energy?
And then the question I would have is, could I just fly?
We're not going to say which airline, but then you have airlines that don't properly maintain their engines, and then one of the engine blows while you're flying. So
that is true.
I don't want to be on the no-fly list because I'm getting ready to fly soon. People be like, you're Venerable Chidao. You said this about our airline. You cannot fly here. Security. Okay. But you have to ask yourself, you know, again, it's a master's thesis and it's a dissertational question. What that man just asked, what this kid just asked, like, does the school will lead us to nirvana? So you have to ask the methods of the school and what the definition of nirvana for each school, because each school has a very different definition of nirvana.
I learned that recently when I was talking to my friend that's a Tibetan Buddhist.
Right, and if it leads you to a different nirvana, if the definition is different, all right, well, we're not going to go there. So, have a good night, Miss Bree. We will discuss
have a good night.
Next week, and bother me this Tuesday and Wednesday, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Take
Sleep
care.
well, you guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining.